Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Alex.
Wonderful seeing you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. As folks are starting to join in, I'm going to go over some intros here for anybody who is new here with House of Felix. House of Felix is a running concept store. It's the first one in Barcelona that blends the love for running and natural wine along with art experiences. The store was born with the sole purpose of creating community, and this is She Runs the World. This is a podcast created by one of the founders, Aisha Riveros Barud. And the aim of the podcast is to create space by women for women to talk, reflect, and possibly change our realities here. I'm Alex. You may remember me from episode one. I had the honor of being the first guest here, and today I am the guest host and joined by the lovely Jessie Zappo. Jessie is a powerhouse in the world of running. She's specifically known as the godmother of crew culture. As a founder of Girls Run NYC and a core member of Bridge Runners, she helped architect the modern, urban, inclusive running movement that we see across the world today, across many cities. She's a creative, she's a coach, she's an ultra runner, and she's an inspiration to many, myself included, and a dear friend of mine. Jessie, thank you so much for being here.
Alex, thank you so much. I'm really honored to share this space with you and hopefully maybe inspire some folks along the way. And yeah, excited for this conversation.
I love it. And before we jump into the questions, where in the world are you? I know you have a jam-packed schedule this spring season. Tell me about where you are and what's ahead.
Yes, so just kind of adding in a little bit of what I currently do. I work specifically in running communities. I have the blessing to be able to travel a bit to see some of the communities that I work with. And so I just came from Atlanta. It was Atlanta Marathon week last week, and I was there with some of my team, just like getting people excited and preparing many people for their first marathon ever,
Wow,
which was
that's
incredible.
inspiring.
So inspiring. Yeah, I always forget, sometimes when you've been running for a lot of years, you forget like how special and magical that is. But I got to take some of that magic with me. And then I am here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm here for about 36 hours, and then I head to LA for LA Marathon, and then I'll be heading to Korea for Seoul Marathon. So I have a little bit of hopping around the world the next couple of weeks, and just like really excited to see what people are doing in running and community right now.
Wow, that's really special. You just kind of like, I want to see what you come back with. And like, we need a little debrief on all the insights that you gathered. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. And jumping into the questions, you have been credited with helping birth crew culture. This changed running from this lonely hobby as we know it to the urban movement that we see today, that brings community and home and belonging to so many people. When you were first starting out, can you talk a little bit about what was the void that you personally were trying to fill?
Yes. I think one thing I want to say first for anyone who maybe is not familiar with what is run crew culture is kind of defining what that is. to me and what that maybe looks like today. We're in the middle of probably the biggest running boom in many decades. It's not the first, which is exciting to say because it's actually probably happened every couple of decades that there's been like a surge in people getting into running and jogging and walking and just general fitness. And running crew culture, I would say, is about 20 years old. I came to New York City in my early 20s to go to graduate school. I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm from a sort of small Midwestern city in the US and moved to New York City by myself in my early 20s. And I had already been running on my own since I was little. I started when I was around 12. And so I had this like kind of relationship to jogging and running. I would not have called myself a runner though.
Yeah.
But I did it almost every day. And I happened to just be approached by someone who I was working as a bartender. He was in nightlife, and he was starting a project called the Bridge Runners. But I don't think he even called it Bridge Runners at the time. He was like, "I'm doing this running thing. Do you want to join?" And I said no because I didn't think I was a runner. And I was like, I've never like done like group running, and at that time, this is like the early 2000s. What you saw were like traditional maybe track clubs or like adult run clubs that were very formal. And these were how I saw it was people who maybe ran competitively in college and then afterwards joined these adult leagues. I remember seeing it like there were track groups where, it's like adults doing track meets. And then there were, these adult groups that were training for things like marathons and such. And it looked very one way, at least in my view, which was like if you were not good at running when you were in college or high school, you wouldn't keep doing this, right? Like it's like these were people that were good at running and like it meant a lot to them and it was like their sport. I didn't think of myself as good at running. I just ran a lot. And so when he invited me to this, it took me a while to show up. I think probably 6 months.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know this.
Yeah, like he kept asking, and I was just like, "Ugh,
Yeah,
it's
what
not me."
finally like made you go and check it out?
Yeah, so what finally made me go was that my roommate at the time, who I also worked with at this bar or restaurant, she went. And she was someone who like ran cross country and like she had like a swimming background and like for whatever reason, she went to the run and I guess it was like a very special run that they did with Martha Cooper, who's this like famous photographer. And there was like a party at the end and it was like very special. So she said, "Oh my God, this is so amazing. Like you have to go." And so because she went, I was like, okay, let me go see. And so then what I didn't know was that was like a one-off like party that they had thrown, which also, by the way, it was a party. And they're like, that's sort of something that differentiates like crew culture to club culture, which I'll share again in a moment. But basically, it was like creating this space that was different for people who were different, who maybe didn't identify as runners. So I went to the next run that they had, and it was just like three guys on a street corner. And one of them being Mike Sace, who's the founder. And I was like, oh
Shout out to
no. Like,
Mike.
yeah, shout out to Mike Sace. But I got there and I was like, oh my God, no. Like, I was just like, I felt like nervous and like out of place. And like, I thought it would be something different. And then they were so happy that I showed up. They were so excited. They were so nice to me, and they took me on this first run, like through the bridges of like lower Manhattan, and we ran 4 miles, and it was like my longest run ever, and they were very encouraging to me. And I felt so welcome, and I felt so um like inspired by like what they were doing from the very first run, because of they're running through the streets. It wasn't like in the park, or it wasn't on the track. It was literally just like, let's see what the environment has to offer us. And at that point, I had never been on the bridges, and I had never seen New York City from that lens. And so, um, yeah, I was hooked from day one, of going, but I probably would have never approached it myself. So I needed somebody to like pull me into that. And, just to say that the difference between run crew culture and what developed out of that and run clubs is that it was really created as this alternative space. And it was an alternative space to try to get people who didn't look like runners, who didn't have maybe a running background, who maybe desperately needed running because of, whatever was going on in their life, or like health. Like it was really created to be this like counterculture space to give people running, because also running is like more accessible than other sports. So you don't need equipment. Like so many people, including myself, showed up with no running shoes. We ran in whatever we had. You wore whatever you had, but
Do
like
you
you could
remember the
participate.
first shoe that you ran in?
I do.
I need to know.
Honestly, so I will never forget it because I was broke. I was like 20 nothing and in grad school and bartending to try to pay my rent. And my friend's older brother was like the head of Vice magazine, and like, like he was doing cool things in the world, and he had some promo pairs of like lifestyle shoes that were a size too big.
Okay.
But like my friend gave them to me, and they were not running shoes at all, but like they were sneakers. And that was what I had. And so I wore that, and it was fine. It was fine because like the truth is you can run barefoot. Like there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And I've seen there were people that ran with us that ran in basketball shoes, that ran in Chuck Taylors, that ran, the whole point was get people moving their bodies. And the minute people started to do that, then they were like, oh, wait, maybe I can do more. Maybe I can do more. Maybe I can do more. And it created this movement where, Bridge Runners was that first urban run crew, to emerge, but it ultimately created a movement where more people said like, hey, I can be a runner. I can start a run club. I can get people together. And like the purpose of doing it is ultimately like taking care of yourself and taking care of your community.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so much goodness that you shared there. I think one question or follow up, as you mentioned, there's so much going on in the world of running today. There's a big boom that's happening. How do we preserve that soul of crew culture in everything that's happening?
Yeah. Well, hello to Bridge Runners. I see they're here. um, how do we preserve crew culture? How do we preserve culture? Is a really great question, because I think look at any movement, right? Like a lot of times people, especially lately, I've heard a lot of analogies to like skate culture. Like skate culture urban skate culture in New York City and bridge runners, or like urban crew culture and running culture in New York City, were like close, because they're kind of similar in that people are going against the grain to find ways of like connecting with each other, connecting with the environment, and being somewhat healthy, but also like creative. Like running, I think is very creative. I think crew culture has always been rooted in creativity. So when I think about that, I think about leaving a lasting legacy, which is like, are we creating things that will last, that people will be like, oh yeah, um, this is the documentary about this, you know? So I think it's having conversations like this, where someone hears it and they're like, wait, that was happening 20 years ago. I want to know more. And you have access to the people that were doing it. So you can learn more. People like we met Charlie Dark from London, like soon-ish. I mean, like I think I'd been with Bridge Runners for like 5 or so years before we met Charlie. But like what he was doing in London was paralleling. And other groups in other cities that we ultimately kind of brought together at the very first Bridge the Gap, which was around 2011, 2012-ish time. Those folks are still around. So I think like documenting is really important. And it's easy to lose things in social media era because it's just like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Like every day there's a new thing. So stuff gets pushed back. So I do think it's important to create things that are going to live outside of that. So films and books and art and experiences and bringing people together is going to always be relevant. And I think we need to, continue to do that. And I would also say, like, being one of the old heads in it, I think it's really important for us to still show up to what new people are doing, what young people are doing, because maybe they're not going to come look for me, but if I'm there and I'm accessible and I'm present, then there's an opportunity for exchange. So I think like as much as possible, I would encourage, and Bridge Runner is definitely doing that. Like Random Crew is definitely doing that, and some of the other groups, but encourage people to like show up and support like what the next generation, and I feel like there have been several generations since 20 years ago that have started really amazing movements, and we have to support each other too.
Yeah, I love that. And talk to me about Girls Run NYC. How did that come about? And I know it's been quite a journey for you and the crew, but just maybe a little bit of an overview for anybody who is listening who may not be familiar.
Yes. So my passion project is Girls Run NYC, and yeah, thank you for repping. Um,
Always.
I really, it was created out of um, my personal need to be around women,
Mhm.
and to be in a space of women that felt supportive, uplifting, and safe. And um, I am one of 8 children. I have 2 sisters, but I have 5 brothers. And had a dad who's very influential, like in our family dynamic of being involved in sport, and being active. And so I've always felt really comfortable navigating spaces that were male dominated. Like kind of grew up like playing with the boys all the time. And that's also a reason why when I went to Bridge Runners, and was the only girl for a while, like felt okay. Cause I was like, it's just like a bunch of like older brothers, and so I personally like feel comfortable in those spaces, but I know that that's not all women feel that way.
Yeah.
And so it was actually like a mission of mine, even within Bridge Runners, like when women would show up to like say hello, to run with them, to like make sure people weren't getting left behind, to like encourage them, because I just wanted more women to show up and be a part of this group. And so, over the years, I just like had this calling, or this like feeling that like there just needed to be like one day a week where just women came together. I didn't want it to be like a run crew. At that time, I just thought, all these women are in these other groups. Maybe there's just one day a week where we come together. And so it started out as a pop-up run, and I just went through my email inbox or my email list, and I just invited every single woman that I knew. I sent like an invite, and I kind of treated it like party promotion. Like I made a party flyer for it, and called it Girls Run With Me. And it was just literally that I was like, I just want to be around a group of women that are doing the same thing. And the very first one, like, quite a few women showed up, and that to me, that was confirmation, like, oh, I should do this again. And so I was doing it, I think maybe monthly or like periodically. And this was the end of 2015 or the beginning of 2015. The dates are a little blurry, but at 2015 was like the year. And so, ultimately that, this group, I will say I have a background in therapy, so I'm like into group dynamics. So like ultimately I was like, this group, I wanted to feel like a safe space. So we always like we start in a circle, people introduce themselves. Even if it's everyone knows each other, we still have to say our name every single time. And we have a question of the day, and then we do our workout, and then we circle up and finish. But the goal was like, let's create some connections here. And so, it's 12 years going now, and it just has like people who were there from the very beginning are still there. My two co-captains are Rashida Herndon and Amira Omar. We've been friends and running with each other since way before Girls Run. And so when I started Girls Run and then kind of saw like how it was growing, I asked both of them to be like co-captains. So really Girls Run NYC is like the three of us, and we lead this space. And it's meant to, one, be like, it's a weekly workout that people come to, and we get new women every week. But it's also we've got this like chat going now, 12 years chat, that people are in. And, it's just like today the chat's going off because it's, Jess LeBron's birthday. So everyone's wishing her a happy birthday. So it's just like a space where people connect. And that was the goal, is like, it's a place to connect. Running is also a way of taking care of ourselves. So like sharing that feels really powerful. And yeah, I know it's been a beacon for a lot of women in starting their own spaces that are women led, or focused. And when we first started it, it was, I actually had people say, like, you're being a sexist. Why are you doing this? Like, why would you create a women's only space? And I was like, I felt, stressed about that. I felt worried about that. Like there was something that I was maybe doing something wrong. And then, now, all these years later, I'm like, oh, I mean, I knew it was the right thing to do. That's why I kept doing it. But But it's amazing that there can be moments where people are just like, why would you do that? Like, it's like, I had a lot of flack actually. At one point, we made a video with Vice magazine about it, and I got so much hate on that video, and I couldn't look at the comments. Like, I literally like panicked and like was having so much like anxiety because of how like mean and nasty people were that we had like made this women's only space.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's needed, and there have been so many more women's spaces that have come about in running, which is it's amazing to see that things have progressed and are continuing to progress.
Well, thank you for sticking with it because I have been incredibly lucky to be able to experience Wednesdays at McCarran with you and Girls Run and the special rituals and the moments of connection that are really special and really rare to come by. And I wanted to ask for anybody who might be curious about running or finding their own tribe, if you will, for any women out there who might be intimidated by the space, do you have a message to, be that nudge that you had, that I've had, that may not exist in their lives?
Yes, I I've talked to women for decades about this topic, which is that yes, like if you happen to live in New York City, you have this like opportunity to pick a number of different women's clubs that you can go to that are focused in on all these different things. There's performance-based clubs, there's social clubs, there's, neighborhood-based. So we're really being in a large city like New York that is also maybe the mecca of urban running. We're very spoiled here, but like then you go right outside and it's very scarce. It can be other cities have no run clubs or no run groups. And I think I can also say, like, because I have sisters-in-law who have recently gotten into running, which has been really inspiring in like Texas and California, that I've kind of watched their journeys, and a lot of what has helped them keep going has been things like social media, and seeing other people like support their journeys, and also connecting with each other and like watching each other, you know, run or like get healthy and then like sign up for these races and then they get together and do it. So, I look at, well, one, I look at things like Every Woman's Marathon, which
Mm.
Catherine Switzer is like one of the faces of that. And she's literally the woman to look to in terms of like who was changing the face of running 50 plus years ago is Catherine, who is still around and still like leading the charge with her clubs 261 Fearless, which are around the world. And those are spaces similar to kind of like what Girls Run is, which is just getting women together through running. So I would say the people who have the ability to create spaces, like please keep doing it, right? Like everyone's marathon largely are first time marathoners. I think it's like more, maybe close to 50% or more were like first time marathoners, like when
Yeah.
they went and did that race. So like obviously we need spaces like that because many women will go and do that in that space itself because it feels approachable. So for women who are like, how do I get started? I maybe live in a small place that doesn't have, I don't see any run clubs or I don't see people like me running. I, my advice has always been make the space you want to be in if you can't find it. And that could just be you and one friend. Doesn't have to be, you don't need a big club to get going, but like having an accountability partner, having someone who wants to do it with you um, is huge. So, do you have someone you work with, or do you have someone in your neighborhood, or do you have a family member who would be willing to meet you, once a week to do a couple miles together? Maybe it starts with walking. Maybe, you know, actually one of my girlfriends who I got into running, she was like, I really want to meet you for coffee in the morning. And I was like, okay, so if you want to do that, then like, why don't we do like 1 or 2 miles jog and then we'll have coffee after? And that was how I ended up starting this group breakfast club, which turned into a really big group of folks who were non-runners who just wanted to get together in the morning, and then we ended with coffee. Um, so it's like, can you create that space? And that one started with just the two of us.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's no pace. The distance doesn't matter. It was more like let's just meet up and like move our bodies and then earn this, coffee and a donut after, and then go about our day. And that was one of the most fun like times ever. Was just didn't have to be about performance. But then like, once you start it and people start coming and they enjoy it, it can turn into something, or it's just you and your friend, and you have that time together, and it's nice.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And with so many people looking to you for inspiration and this sort of like pace setting that you've been doing over the past decade or few decades, where do you recharge and how do you rest? What fills your cup?
That's a great question. Well, as I said earlier, this weekend in Atlanta was, while I wasn't getting enough sleep, it was like rejuvenating and recharging in a different way, which was seeing the joy of people preparing for and running their first official race. We
Mm.
had a group from Adidas Runners Atlanta who were largely like new to doing like half marathons and marathons. And so um, the captain of the group there like was really getting this group, like encouraging them, and like many of them were like, I got tricked into signing up. But they were so excited, and they had done the training, and just like being around them, because I was in the expo, working in the expo, and then at the start line and at the finish line. And so I really got to see like this experience for this group of women and men who were basically like, this is their first like marathon experience.
Yeah.
I like, it was just, it like really fills my cup because I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, like it's so special. And you forget how special it is if you've like been doing it for a while, and you're like, people that get deep, deep, deep into running are like, I've got 5 marathons this season, and it starts to like maybe look different. So I would say like what fills my cup is like being around beginners,
Yeah.
seeing people take their first steps, seeing people run their first races, and then having conversations like this where you have an opportunity to just be like, I love running, like, and other people might hear it and someone else might get inspired and be like, I want to put my shoes on and I want to go out and run. I'm going to start today. Like someone probably will watch this and be like, I'm going to put my shoes on. I'm going to go outside.
That's my
Like
like
that.
single goal for this conversation. If we can make that happen to one person, like my like life is complete.
Yeah, and we will because that's how it goes. Like I've had that experience over time. Like you sharing your journey, like watching you and all the training you did and then, you doing this big event. That's inspiring. That makes me want to run. Like if we were just in our own bubble and it was just us and it was all about us, we probably wouldn't keep doing it because you know, we need each other. Like we need each other as inspiration, as motivation, as accountability, as support. And so I feel like that's part of my calling is to be here to like push somebody to do it, because it might change their life, because it changed my life. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be we have affected more than just one person, I'm sure.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's like a bug, truly. And it is such a life-changing one that once you pick it up, it really can be a beautiful source of growth and a tool for self-discovery. And yeah, I did my soapbox on that in episode one, so I won't go again. But while we're on the topic of rest, I know that we share some rituals, and actually one thing that you put me on is acupuncture. I'd love to hear about how acupuncture helps you in your recovery and release. There's so much that bubbles up in our bodies as we move, especially once we start going really long. Um, I know that it's important to take the time to process those emotions and to release them. And Chinese medicine and acupuncture is such a great tool for that. Can you talk about your experience and how it's helped you?
Yes. So, in talking about why I love acupuncture, I have to say that um, I started running when I was 12. I'm 46, so it's like 30 plus years of running. Um, and I want at least 30 more, right? Like I want to run, I want to be that 80-year-old running. I will say there was an 81-year-old that I met also at the running expo this weekend
I love this.
who he was like, we started chatting. He's like, I was like, oh, are you going to run tomorrow? He was going to run the 5K. He is number one in his age group last year, so he won these shoes. I was like, are you going to be number one in your age group again? His wife was like, he's 81, right? And I was like, oh my God. He did not look 81, first to say. If I had to guess, I would have said he was in his 60s. So this man, and I saw him at the finish line. He ran that 5K. I want to be that person. Like that's my motivation. That's like been a lot of my motivation. And I am coming up against the fact of life, which is that you got to recover. And it was so cool being in your 20s when you were just like, go out, party, show up to the race, run the race, then start partying again. And like, that was really fun. And my body cannot do that like that anymore, because aging and also ultra running. Like ultra
Right.
running it requires a next level of recovery. So recovery is not, let me go take care of myself because I hurt. It needs to be built in. It needs to be that you are planning this alongside of your training. So acupuncture, fortunately, I had started doing in maybe like 2019, 2018 or 2019 when I was really started getting into ultra running like heavy. And it's been a game changer for me. One, because I think my acupuncturist is the best. Shout out to Teddy from Morningside Acupuncture. He is also an athlete. His wife is a runner. He runs, but he's a soccer player, and like he like got into acupuncture as a way of like helping him keep playing soccer like competitively. So it's nice to work with someone who's like sports medicine like focused, and he just has helped me through all of these different uncomfortable like issues that come up when you run a lot, which is like hamstring strains, or I had a stress fracture over the summer because I didn't recover right. And so I'm basically like going to acupuncture when I'm training heavy, like every other week. And it's helped me understand my body better, how things work together, like imbalances, what I need to work on, like outside of acupuncture in terms of strengthening, also stress. Because some of the stuff that comes up for me in my body is actually stress related, and it doesn't have anything to do with running, but it's impacting me, and then it's making everything fall apart. So, having a practice like acupuncture alongside of some of the other stuff I do, like physical therapy, has been, absolutely necessary to just keep moving at the level that I want to, which is like I want to be really active and I want to stay active as long as I can.
Here for the long run, right?
Yes.
I love that. And you wrote something on your Instagram a few months back. Both of us were sitting out with a very similar injury. And on your story, and you wrote that training for 100 miles essentially boils down to learning how to do self-care and love yourself in a way. And I was just like, that is so true because you're pushing your limits and your own boundaries and your own body in ways that just feel very intense at times, and you need to nurture and support yourself in so many different ways through this experience in order um, to just get through it. And I thought that was really beautiful. And one more plug, and I'd love for you to chime in on this as well. I know we're both on Open. This is not like a sponsored ad at all, but Open is one of my favorite breathwork and meditation apps. I've been on there for a couple of years now, and it's just been such a game changer. And you talk about the stress part that comes with not only running, but everyday life, and having a practice for the mind as well is something that can really help. So, yeah, I don't know if you want to chime in about that ritual as well, because I know we've talked about it before, and we share the love for breathing.
Yes. So thank you for pointing out the holistic aspect of running and life, because I think people that know me or who've worked with me as athletes know that I am coming and operating from a holistic approach, which is that we cannot just like insert running into your life and like not have these other pieces that help take care of you as a person and you as a runner. Because like the cool thing about running is that like many, if not most people could do it on some level because it doesn't require a lot to get started. But the other side of running is that it can tip you all the way over into like injury, burnout. There can be unhealthy relationships to it. And all of that is like, it's like this double-edged sword. And I've been there, I can say for sure, and many times, like, and last year was a good one where I just was like, I'm gonna run this 100 miler, but I'm not just gonna run it. I'm gonna like train as hard as I can. And in that, I crossed over the line. And I was ignoring physical sensations and I was ignoring probably practical advice. And maybe it wasn't as connected to like myself as I needed to be. And so, like, thinking about mindset and like mental performance and mindfulness as one aspect of training is really important. And things like mindfulness, meditation, and breath work are a piece of that. And so I I feel like I'm still a baby practitioner when it comes to meditation and breath work, but I had um, the real honor and pleasure to do a lot of mindfulness work with Amira Omar, who is a mindfulness coach. She
Mm.
was our mindset coach for Adidas runners for a number of years. And Christian Straka, who is also a mindset coach for us, who's LA based. And so I learned a lot of tools that we practiced and we applied specifically to running, and was in this like sort of deep practice when COVID hit, when like the pandemic happened. And so it was really like timely because I ended up really needing meditation every single day at that point because of what we were all going through. And so um, just to like learn a little bit of the skills was enough to give you a little bit of information on like how to practice. And so I think like anything, it is a practice. Like you just have to be like, if you're stretching every day, you're going to have, you'll be a little more flexible. You'll have more mobility. If you're stretching once a week, it's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at like meditation in that same way, that you can use it anytime it's there. But it is like a muscle that needs to be flexed. And I I could definitely do better. But I know that it's there. It's like in my toolbox. It's something to utilize. And with any of these sort of practices, like focusing on your nutrition, making sure you're sleeping, doing like mindset and breath work and meditation, getting in the gym to do some strength work, like all those things, when you start to like stack those little habits on each other, then you're going to see like the best version of yourself.
Yeah. It's so amazing to see how it all adds up. Um,
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about that. And switching gears here, recent data from the last couple of years suggests that the longer the race, the smaller the gender gap. Um, to the point where in races over 195 miles, women are actually outperforming men. Scientists have all kinds of data backing this that points to the human physiology and the female body. But I wanted to get your take. Are there innate characteristics or skills that we have that naturally make us skilled in long distance running?
Okay, my non-PC answer is women are used to putting up with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
We're used to enduring.
Yeah, ability to endure. I think that's the scale, where we can really flex.
Yeah, I that would be my sort of just like off the cuff answer, but no, like seriously, it's been so inspiring watching women's performance really take center stage. One, across all sports, by the way, like looking at the Winter Olympics and women really just like outperforming across the board is like, and at a younger age is just, it kind of just goes to show like if you are seeing an opportunity that it changes your mindset that you're like, those women that are performing in their early 20s, they started when they were kids because they had support and they saw the women that came before them. So it's like, yeah, like what did they say? Like when you empower women, it like changes a village or, it's just like that seems pretty clear to me that giving access to sport at a younger age and a pivotal age and then providing support creates the conditions for women to excel. And so we are going to continue to see women excelling across all sports, but like in running in particular, if you really look at the timeline, 50-ish years ago, women were not allowed to run the marathon. There was no women's marathon in the Olympics until the 80s. So like this is still like relatively new. We were talking about the Olympic trials when it was in Atlanta, which was like a few years back, right before COVID, because I remember doing a watch party for it after a long run, and we were watching, and it was the largest field of women who had ever qualified to do the Olympic trials, and they weren't ready. Like they were like, how did this many women like meet the qualifying standards? And it was because of, women having the space to train, being given the space to train, like seeing the opportunity. So I think we're going to see women like crushing sport, but like these endurance events are really inspiring because you're also seeing women who are older in age, still running their best times. And I think that's like, even if I look at myself as, I always think about young Jessie being in her 20s and thinking like, you can't ever get better at something. Like you missed the window, like because you didn't already do it, you missed the window and you're not going to be able to do it. You can't learn how to do it or get better. Like that was a fixed mindset that came from, like maybe my childhood or where I came from or the people I was around. And so like, thank God for like running actually helped me change my mindset to being flexible and understanding like there's more and like we are ultimately sort of limitless beings. But like we place limits on ourselves. So watching women outright winning races, and that was happening. If you look, I just started reading Born to Run again, which I highly recommend.
Yes.
If you've never read it, read it. If you've read it, read it again. It means something different, like reading it the second time now. But there were women ultra runners outright winning 100-mile races like 20, 30 years ago. So it's also like we have more media coverage of women now in sport, thankfully. It was 4% at one point, like maybe 10 years ago, of media coverage was women's
Wow.
sports. Yeah. So it's also like we need to like tell these stories. People need to know. Thank God for social media in that respect that like you immediately know that the 100-mile, what the 100-mile race record was and who did it. Whereas, like 15 years ago, like you're not going to know. So, um, yeah, I think it's amazing. Obviously, I think women are amazing. It's also incredible to see that like many of these athletes are balancing full-time jobs, families, being a mother, being a wife, like doing all these other things, and going and running like 100-mile, 200-mile races.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's so much that you said in there that just speaks to me. And I think in today's world, there is just so much pressure to be fast and to go all out right off the bat. And in some of these longer races and longer distances, um, the back of the pack is actually more powerful. And, setting a slower pace can get you a lot further, which is, I think, something that a lot of people um, are learning currently the hard way.
Yeah.
And how maybe the most radical thing that you can do in today's world is actually slow down and go further. And yeah, I'm just so excited and inspired to see where the world of female running and female sports in general goes, and um, to be a part of it and see unfold. Jessie, we are on the hour here. I want to be mindful of your time. I think we can put a bow on this wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Always, it is such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And I'm so grateful for everything that you've done for the world of running, and for all of us here who get to experience it as the gift that it is, and this place of home and community and love that we get to have. So thank you on behalf of everybody.
Thank you so much. I could talk all day long about it. So thank you for really shaping this conversation and also just being who you are and um, excited to talk more.
All right. Have the best day and good luck with all of your travels.
Thank you.
Ciao.